Let's start here, because this is the myth that quietly wrecks more relationships than lies, than betrayal, than distance itself. You've been taught that love means closeness, that the more you share, the more you merge, the more you prove you care, the safer love becomes. But what if that's wrong? What if the very thing you've been told keeps love alive is the very thing making it unsafe for the people who fear it most? See, when we talk about the avoidant, the person who seems distant, cold, detached, we focus on the distance. We tell ourselves, if I could just get closer, if I could just make them open up, everything would be okay. But closeness isn't always safety, not for them. And if you're honest, not for you either. Because real love isn't about constant contact. It's about consistent safety. And safety doesn't live in your words. It lives in your energy. Here's the truth that most of us miss. For some people, love has never felt like peace. It's felt like pressure. It's felt like walking on eggshells, like holding your breath around someone you adore because one wrong move could ruin everything. And so what do? They protect themselves. They pull back. They disconnect, not because they don't care, but because they don't trust that they can stay themselves while being close to someone else. Now, you might not call yourself avoidant, but I want you to hear this anyway, because every one of us has a version of avoidance. It's that part of you that hides when things get real. That part that says, if I let them see too much, they'll leave. Or maybe the opposite. If I don't hold on tighter, they'll forget me. Both are fear. One runs from love, the other chases it. And neither one feels safe. What keeps love unsafe isn't distance. It's misunderstanding. It's the belief that closeness must come at the cost of individuality. Let me say that again. Closeness without autonomy is control, not connection. And that's why so many of you feel exhausted trying to hold on to love, because you've been taught that togetherness means sameness. But sameness kills desire. It kills curiosity, and it kills growth. You can't breathe if someone else is breathing for you. You can't feel free if every move you make has to be explained, justified, or approved. So if you're in a relationship right now that feels like walking a tightrope between love and losing yourself, I want you to remember this line. You don't have to disappear to be loved. That's the myth. That's what keeps love unsafe. Love isn't supposed to consume you. It's supposed to contain you safely, gently, respectfully, so you can expand. And that's what this conversation is really about. Because when we understand that safety is the soil and autonomy is the sunlight, that's when love actually starts to grow. So today, we're going to pull apart that illusion. We're going to talk about why love without freedom isn't love at all and how understanding that changes everything for the people who fear closeness and for the people who keep chasing it. Because there's a way to make love safe again. And it doesn't start with them. It starts with you. Let's go deeper, because before you can ever build safety with someone who pulls away, you have to understand what they're protecting. Most people think the avoidant is afraid of you. They're not. They're afraid of what connection demands. For them, love has never been a place of rest. It's been a test they didn't sign up for, but one they've been taking their whole lives. See, for the avoidant, closeness equals risk. And that wiring starts young before they even had words to explain it. Maybe they grew up in a home where affection came with strings. Maybe love felt like walking through a minefield. Some days warm, other days explosive. Maybe they learned early that to stay safe, they had to stay small, quiet, self-reliant. And that's what we call adaptive love. It's love that teaches you to survive instead of connect. Their nervous system learned this equation. Closeness equals control. Intimacy equals a loss. Love equals surrender of self. So now, as adults, even when they want love, even when they crave closeness, their body remembers danger. Their mind might say, I want to be close, but their body screams, don't lose yourself again. And that's what you're really feeling when they pull away. Not rejection, not indifference. A nervous system on defense. Let's pause there, because that's important. When you take someone's withdrawal Personally, you add shame to fear. You make it about worth instead of wiring. And that's when both of you start to spiral. You chase harder, they retreat deeper. It's not that they don't love you. It's that their body doesn't trust what love feels like. Because in their story, love was never predictable. It was performance. You earned it, you managed it, you worked to keep it. And when something that was supposed to feel safe ends up feeling like survival, your brain builds a wall, not because you want distance, but because distance becomes the only way you can breathe. So if you're loving someone avoidant right now, I want you to understand this truth. Their silence is a form of self-soothing. Their space is a safety plan. And that doesn't make them broken. It makes them human. It means they've been running on outdated programming code written in pain, not peace. And if you've ever tried to love someone who fears closeness, you know exactly what I mean. You feel the push and pull, the hot and cold, the mixed signals that make you question your own sanity. But here's the reality. Avoidance isn't emotional absence, it's emotional armor. It's what happens when your body learns that love and loss feel the same. So the question becomes, how do you help someone rewrite that code? How do you show love in a way that doesn't trigger their fear of losing control? The answer isn't louder words. It's calmer energy. Because before an avoidant can ever let love in, they have to feel safe enough not to disappear inside it. And that safety doesn't come from convincing them. It comes from understanding them. When you start seeing their withdrawal as protection, not punishment, everything shifts. The story stops being, they don't want me, and starts being, they're scared to lose themselves. And from that place of compassion, connection becomes possible again. This is where we start to see love not as pursuit, but as patience. Not as control, but as curiosity. Because here's the paradox. You don't build intimacy by closing the distance. You build it by respecting the space. That's how safety starts. That's how love starts to breathe again. Now, here's where the dynamic flips. This is the mirror moment, the one nobody wants to look at, but everyone needs to. Because the truth is, the harder you chase someone avoidant, the more you prove their fear was right. I know that stings, but stay with me. When someone you love pulls away, your instinct, especially if you crave connection, is to move closer. You text again. You explain more. You say things like, I just need clarity, or can we please talk? And every time you do, it feels like the right thing because you're fighting for love, right? But to the avoidant, every word of pursuit feels like pressure. They don't hear your care. They hear your urgency. And urgency feels unsafe because remember, their nervous system has learned that connection equals loss of control. So when you move closer, their body says, retreat. When you demand clarity, they feel cornered. When you over-explain, they shut down, not because they don't care, but because they can't regulate the surge of emotion that hits them. And here's the mirror. Your reaction to their silence becomes the proof of their fear. They think, if I get close, I'll lose myself. And then you chase, and suddenly, they're right. Now love feels like chaos again. That's the loop. That's the pattern that keeps both people stuck. One chasing safety, the other running from it. And neither of them realizing they're actually after the same thing, peace. So how do you break the loop? By doing the thing your fear tells you not to. By pausing, by learning to hold your own center when they lose theirs. Because the moment you stop chasing, the dynamic changes. The moment you stop explaining, you stop confirming their worst story, that intimacy always means intensity, that love always costs control. And when you stay still, when you breathe, instead of beg, something powerful happens. Their nervous system feels something it hasn't felt before, calm, in connection. That's what I call the mirror moment. It's the space where your behavior starts to reflect safety instead of fear. It's when your silence isn't withdrawal, it's steadiness. When your calm isn't disinterest, it's maturity. When your stillness isn't punishment, it's peace. And listen, I know this isn't easy. When you care about someone, every fiber in your body wants to fix the distance. But what if that distance isn't the problem? What if it's the invitation? What if silence is their nervous system saying, teach me that I can be close without being consumed? That's your mirror. That's your moment to practice a new kind of love, one that doesn't chase, doesn't demand, doesn't prove, a love that waits, grounded, unshaken. Because every time you choose calm over control, you teach them something they've never experienced, that safety doesn't have to vanish when someone cares. So the next time they pull back, don't panic, don't perform, just breathe. Hold steady. You're not losing them. You're showing them something new. You're becoming the mirror they can finally trust. Let's talk about safety, because this is the bridge that every relationship, every connection, every human heart has to cross before love can stay. Most people think love is built through words, but it's not. It's built through energy. It's built through the way your presence lands in someone's nervous system. See, the avoidant isn't scanning your sentences. They're scanning your state. They're asking, am I safe here? Can I breathe here? Can I be me here? And here's the mistake most of us make. We try to build safety with promises. I'm not going anywhere. You can talk to me. You can trust me. But the body doesn't believe words. It believes patterns. It believes tone. It believes consistency. You can't say safety. You have to be it. Safety is when you stop reacting to every silence like it's rejection. It's when you stop making their withdrawal mean something about your worth. It's when you stay steady, even when their rhythm changes. That's the invisible currency that moves the avoidant calm, non-demanding consistency. Because here's what happens. When your energy no longer spikes every time they retreat, their nervous system starts to relax. It realizes that your presence isn't a trap, it's a choice. And when the body feels safe, the mind starts to open. You don't force that opening. You earn it through steadiness. Think about it like this. You can't plant a seed in concrete and expect it to grow. You have to soften the soil first. And for the avoidant, soft means safe. Safe means no judgment. Safe means no hidden expectations waiting to pounce. Safe means your calm doesn't depend on their closeness. When that happens, when your energy communicates peace instead of pressure, everything begins to shift. You stop trying to pull them closer, and instead, you become the place they want to move toward. That's when pursuit ends and partnership begins. Because safety doesn't demand, it invites. It doesn't chase, it allows. It doesn't perform, it proves through presence. And here's the paradox. When you finally stop needing their closeness to feel secure, that's when they start to move closer. Because now, closeness doesn't cost them control. It offers them calm. That's why I say safety is the bridge between distance and desire. It's what turns silence into communication. It's what transforms avoidance into trust. When your energy tells their nervous system, you don't have to run here, they begin to breathe differently around you. Their shoulders drop, their tone softens, their walls start to lower. And that's not manipulation. That's co-regulation. Two nervous systems, learning how to feel safe together. So if you want to build real connection with someone who fears it, stop trying to prove you're the one. Start showing that you're the calm. Because when love feels like safety, it stops needing control. And when safety becomes the language of your connection, love doesn't just survive, it finally starts to grow roots. Now that you understand safety, let's talk about its twin autonomy. Because here's the truth. You can't build real love without it. For years, we've been sold a story that love means fusion, two people becoming one, never apart, never separate. But that's not love. That's enmeshment. That's control, dressed up as closeness. Freedom is not the opposite of love. Freedom is what makes love sustainable. And this is where the avoidant lives, in the deep instinctive need to protect their freedom. They've learned to equate closeness with captivity. They don't pull away because they want solitude. They pull away because they want sovereignty, to feel like they can exist as themselves inside love, not as a reflection of your expectations. And that's not arrogance, that's self-preservation. See, autonomy doesn't mean distance. It means choice. It means being able to reach out because you want to, not because you're being chased, coaxed, or convinced. It means being able to love without losing yourself. And if you've ever tried to force connection, you know how that feels: tight, heavy, anxious, like trying to hold water in your hands, but the tighter you grip, the faster it slips away. Autonomy changes that. It says, I can be me while loving you. It says, I don't need to control you to feel safe with you. It says, I respect your space because I've learned how to fill mine. That's the shift that turns relationships from reactive to resilient. So how do you create autonomy and love, especially when you crave closeness? I call it the freedom framework. 3 simple truths that change everything. 1, don't manage their emotions. You're not responsible for regulating someone else's nervous system. You can support, you can hold, but you cannot fix. Every time you try to fix how they feel, you reinforce the story that you need control to stay connected. Instead, mirror calm, hold compassion, let them come back when they've found their balance. 2, respect pauses as processing, not punishment. An avoidant doesn't disappear to hurt you. They step back to hear themselves. When you treat that silence as rejection, you amplify their fear. But when you honor it as reflection, you make room for their return. 3, lead with invitation, not expectation. Invitation says, I'm here if you want to join me. Expectation says, you should be here or I'll feel unloved. One builds trust, the other builds resistance. Because autonomy isn't about detachment, it's about ownership. It's saying, my peace is mine to protect, my love is mine to give, and my boundaries are mine to keep. And when you embody that, something amazing happens. The avoidance stops running. Because now, love doesn't look like a cage. It looks like collaboration. Freedom becomes the glue, not the gap. The relationship breathes again. When both people can stand fully as themselves, they stop fighting for control and start practicing connection. That's when love becomes a choice made daily, not a need filled desperately. So remember this: control is fear in disguise. Trust is love in action. You don't earn love by holding tighter. You build it by letting both of you breathe. That's what autonomy really is. It's love with open hands. It's the kind of freedom that makes staying feel safe. Let's redefine what intimacy actually means, because most of us have been chasing the wrong version of it. You've been told intimacy is about being close, about knowing everything, sharing everything, never missing a text, never needing space. But that's not intimacy. That's exposure. Real intimacy isn't about proximity. It's about presence. It's not about how much you say. It's about how deeply you're able to be there, calm, curious, connected, without collapsing into the other person. Because love that costs you yourself is never real love. It's self-abandonment wrapped in validation. And validation, no matter how warm it feels at first, will always leave you cold. See, intimacy without individuality isn't connection, it's consumption. It's one nervous system trying to live inside another. And nobody can survive that for long. So here's the shift. Healthy intimacy isn't I lose me to love you. It's I stay me while I love you. It's not a melting, it's a meeting. 2 whole people showing up, not to complete each other, but to reflect each other. Think of it like this: 2 trees growing side by side. Their roots reach out and intertwine beneath the soil, but their trunks stand tall and separate. They don't steal from each other's sunlight, they share it. They grow because they both have room, too. That's intimacy. That's connection without collapse. When you build love like that, your conversations sound different. You stop saying, you never make me feel safe. You start saying, I'm learning to feel safe and I want to share that with you. You stop trying to fix their silence. You start listening to what the silence is saying. Because the truth is, the avoidant doesn't fear love. They fear losing their sense of self inside it. And the anxious partner doesn't fear independence. They fear being forgotten inside someone else's freedom. Both are just searching for the same thing: connection that doesn't cost identity. And that's the balance. Love that honors me while embracing we. So, how do you start creating that kind of intimacy? You practice curiosity over control. You choose compassion over urgency. You speak in questions, not accusations. Instead of, why are you so distant? Try, what helps you feel safe right now? Instead of, I need you to talk to me, say, I'm here whenever you're ready. It's subtle, but that language rewires the emotional atmosphere. Because the moment you make room for someone's autonomy inside your love, you also make room for real intimacy to grow. And you'll know it's working when your connection starts to feel lighter, freer, and deeper all at once. That's the paradox most people miss. When you stop trying to hold love so tightly, it finally has space to hold you. This is the turning point. It's the moment when everything you've learned about love finally starts to make sense. Because love becomes safe the moment autonomy meets acceptance. Up until now, every avoidant has lived in a world where those two things could never coexist. In their experience, closeness has always come with conditions. Love said, be open, but not too open. Be available, but only when I need you. Be yourself, but make sure it doesn't upset me. So what did they learn? That love equals management. That connection equals loss. That to survive love, you have to stay half in and half out. But when autonomy meets acceptance, everything changes. Acceptance says you can be exactly who you are and I'll still stay steady. Not because I approve of everything you do, but because I respect the truth of who you are. And here's where the shift begins, because for the first time, the avoidant nervous system doesn't have to armor up. It starts to believe that maybe love doesn't have to be a battlefield. Maybe it can be a bridge. See, when someone finally experiences closeness that doesn't demand conformity, their entire body exhales. The walls don't need to fall. They simply soften. And in that softness, desire is reborn. Because here's the secret. People don't run from love. They run from pressure. They run from the feeling that they have to shrink to stay connected. Acceptance removes that pressure. It teaches the avoidant and you that freedom inside connection isn't rebellion, it's maturity. That you can be deeply intertwined and still fully yourself. This is the moment where they begin to lean in, not because they're being pulled, but because they want to. They start initiating small gestures at first, maybe a message, a question, a reach, not out of obligation, but out of curiosity, out of safety. And for you, the one who's learned to chase, to manage, to anticipate this is your turning point too. Because now you're no longer chasing love, you're cultivating peace. You're not reacting to withdrawal, you're responding to energy. You stop needing them to change in order to feel secure. And that's exactly when they start to, it's ironic, isn't it? The moment you stop trying to make someone come closer is the moment they finally do, because autonomy has been honored, acceptance has been granted. And in that space, love finally feels like freedom, not a fight. That's what healing looks like. Not perfection, not performance, but partnership where both people can stand in their own light and still share warmth. So if you've ever wondered, when will they finally open up? When will they feel safe with me? The answer isn't when they trust you. It's when they realize they can trust themselves around you. That's the real turning point. When love stops being a risk and starts being a return to self, to safety, to something real, because the goal was never to make them stay. The goal was to make freedom feel safe enough that they'd want to. Now, let's bring this home because everything I've shared so far doesn't just apply to them. It applies to you. You cannot build safety in another person if you don't know how to anchor it inside yourself. You cannot help someone trust closeness if your own nervous system is still panicking every time they pull away. The work isn't about fixing the avoidant. It's about becoming the calm they can finally trust. That means you have to stop being the storm that rushes in to fill silence, the storm that demands reassurance when you feel insecure, the storm that confuses reaction with connection. Because the truth is, love doesn't grow in chaos. It grows in calm. And calm doesn't mean cold. It means centered. To become the anchor, you have to regulate before you reach out. You have to pause before you prove. You have to breathe before you beg. That's where the 5-second rule becomes more than a productivity hack. It becomes emotional leadership. When you feel the urge to text, to chase, to explain, you stop. You count backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you ask yourself, what part of me is asking for safety right now? That question changes everything. Because instead of looking to them to fix your fear, you start soothing it yourself. And that is power. That's the moment you stop being reactive and start being regulated. And that shift doesn't just calm you, it calms the entire relationship. You see, nervous systems sync. When one person holds peace, the other feels it. When one person stops spiraling, the cycle breaks. That's co-regulation. That's leadership. And listen, this is not about pretending you don't care. It's not about playing games or withdrawing to win. It's about emotional maturity, learning to hold your center even when connection wobbles. You stop chasing validation and start embodying value. You stop needing to be chosen and start choosing yourself. Because you can't be the anchor if you're still waiting for permission to stand tall. Here's the truth. When you learn to anchor your emotions, the avoidant starts to trust your energy. When you stop over-explaining, they start listening. When you stop demanding connection, they start offering it. Because your peace teaches them peace. That's your real influence. Not control, not persuasion, but calm leadership, the kind that doesn't shout, doesn't chase, doesn't panic. It simply is. And when you live from that steadiness, you become magnetic, not because you're trying to pull anyone in, but because your energy feels like home. That's what makes the avoidant lean back in. That's what makes love sustainable. You stopped being a storm. They had to survive and became the anchor they could rest beside. So from now on, before you react, before you reach, before you rush, ask yourself, am I being the anchor or the storm? And if it's the storm, pause, because your peace is not a prize you chase in others, it's a power you choose in yourself. This is where it all comes together. This is the part where insight becomes embodiment. Because awareness is beautiful, but awareness without integration is just more noise. It's not enough to know about safety or autonomy or acceptance. You have to live it. You have to become it. Love without losing yourself means this. You stop negotiating your boundaries to keep peace. You stop shrinking your truth to avoid tension. You stop proving your worth through someone else's attention. You realize that the version of you that keeps everyone comfortable is the version that's most disconnected from your own heart. And you finally make the decision to stop disappearing. Because the moment you disappear for love, you teach love to leave you empty. You don't have to do that anymore. Safety starts in your own nervous system. It's the calm you bring to every room, the breath you take before reacting, the silence you hold without fear. It's the knowing that you don't need to perform to deserve peace. Autonomy means you trust your choices, even when others don't understand them. It means you can walk away from chaos without guilt and towards stillness without shame. And intimacy, real intimacy, becomes the meeting of two people who know who they are, not two people hoping the other will tell them. So take everything we've talked about and remember this flow. Safety opens the door. Autonomy keeps it open. Acceptance invites trust. And presence, your presence is what holds it all together. When you live from that truth, love stops being a game of pursuit and withdrawal. It becomes a rhythm. It becomes reciprocity. It becomes peace. And here's the most powerful part. When you start embodying safety, you stop chasing it. When you start embodying respect, you stop begging for it. When you start embodying freedom, you stop fearing loss. Because what you carry within you can never be taken away. You are the anchor. You are the calm. You are the safe space that love finally recognizes and returns to. This is love without losing yourself. Love that breathes, love that grows, love that stays, not because it's held tight, but because it feels free. And when you live that way, you don't just heal your relationships. You heal your nervous system. You heal your story. You heal your life. Let's end here with the kind of peace you don't chase, the kind of love you don't lose. Because real confidence in love isn't loud. It doesn't need to convince. It doesn't need to control. It doesn't need to be seen. It's quiet. It's steady. It's calm. It's the energy that walks into the room and says, I know who I am. I know what I give. And I don't need chaos to feel connection. That's the kind of confidence that makes love last. Not because it forces anyone to stay, but because it makes leaving unnecessary. See, when you finally stop confusing intensity with intimacy, you begin to experience a new kind of love, one that's not about possession, but about presence. You realize that the most magnetic energy in the world is peace, that the most irresistible person in any relationship is the one who knows how to stay grounded when everything else wobbles. You become that person. You stop trying to be understood, and you start being understanding. You stop waiting for the other shoe to drop because you've already built the ground you stand on. You stop negotiating your self-worth in moments of silence because you know your value is never up for discussion. That's what quiet confidence is. It's the courage to stay calm in a world that worships urgency. It's the strength to stay kind in a world that glorifies reaction. It's the wisdom to stay grounded in a world that keeps trying to shake you. And when you live from that space, love begins to mirror it back to you. The avoidant feels it. The anxious feels it. You feel it. Because safety, once embodied, spreads. So as you walk away from this moment, I want you to remember something. You don't heal by being chosen. You heal by choosing peace. You don't rebuild trust by demanding it. You rebuild it by becoming it. You don't earn love by proving yourself. You invite it by being yourself fully, freely, fearlessly. Because love doesn't need to be chased to last. It just needs to feel safe enough to stay. So breathe. You've already done the work. You've already built the bridge. Now, walk across it, calm, steady, whole. Because when you become peace, peace becomes your people. And that's when love, real love, finally lasts.